Welcome home, y'all. This is a solo pod of Native Land Pod. I'm Angela Rye. I get to sit with y'all most Tuesdays. Last Tuesday I was out, but I am back today, and I want to talk a little bit about this social media beef in these here social media streets. There's been a woman named Taylor Lorenz who wrote a piece called "A Dark Money Group is Secretly Funding High-Profile Democratic Influencers." Ooh, very taboo. Until you really get into the meat of this thing and you figure out what's been happening on the other side. The context that I would like to offer you in this moment is that, we're living in an unprecedented times. Some call it fascism. I am some. Okay. There are a lot of us who are trying to figure out what in the world is going on right now. And sometimes when you are living in unprecedented times, you have to do unprecedented things. The thing that Taylor Lorenz is criticizing dark money for are things that Republican folks have been doing for many, many years. Some of them were doing it below the radar and illegally before Citizens United. And after that decision, the ways in which dark money influenced the political process significantly shifted. And I would say that on the other side of the aisle with the Democratic Party, they've been very reluctant to engage in this way. So if you think about what just happened in Texas, I'm going somewhere. If you think about what just happened in Texas with the redistricting process, you saw blue state governors saying, you know what? If Texas nucks, I'm about to buck. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because these are the same governors who just a couple of years ago, not even, were saying, you know what we need? I'm going to tell you what we need. We need independent redistricting commissions. We need congressional and state legislative lines drawn by nonpartisan people so we can ensure fairness in the process. When you hear that, you're like, you know what? That's a good idea for some people. There are others of us, particularly my forever bosses with the Congressional Black Caucus, that know generally when you talk about nonpartisan and it's all going to be fair, Black folks are normally the ones who are left out. And of course, in this redistricting day and age where they decide to just redraw districts in the middle of a term, 5 years in, instead of the 10-year mark, which is standard, you get cheaters. And so what happened is blue state governors were like, okay, well, they're playing by a different set of rules. We can either play ball or we can still be going for this wish idea for these independent redistricting commissions. Dark money is no different. Hear me. Dark money is no different. When you are playing with people who are not playing fair, at some point you got to step into the ball game. So I want to listen to this clip really quick from Taylor Lorenz, and we are going to bring in a very special guest, my sister friend, who will be introduced right on the other side of this clip. Let's roll it.
Well, so what you just said is totally right. Like the right is seen as more authentic, and that is because that there's not this effort to from the top to sort of control who gets access and who gets power and sort of like gatekeep. Whereas the Democrats sort of seem obsessed with gatekeepers and they can't stop making these, they want to invent new gatekeepers when old gatekeepers don't exist. So, this dark money group and this chorus company are sort of seemingly trying to become those gatekeepers. I think another issue is that the Democrats criticized dark money for a long time and have criticized its role in politics. And I think that this situation just reveals further the problems that we have about the influencer world. Because you're right, this does happen on the right too, right? Like this is a big. I've written about some of those influence campaigns. But we want to get rid of dark money in politics so that we know who's posting these political messages or who's biased. If I take $50,000 from a dark money group, first of all, that makes me uncomfortable because I don't even know who's funding that group or what their sort of goals are. But say I take that money, people should know, like the people following me should have a right to know my funding. And I think that we should know the funding sources of these political influencers or of these influencers who are calling themselves journalists.
So, this is a very interesting conversation that we're having in a vacuum. And to back us up out of this vacuum, and maybe Citizens United versus FEC will also help us. It was a 2010 case that changed the game for all of us. But I want to bring in my good friend and sister, Elizabeth Booker Houston. You all know her as BookerSquared. And she is regularly bringing it to folks. And what I would like to know from Elizabeth first, because I believe in fact finding. So, sis, let's just have a fact finding moment. Can you please tell me when you started to produce content where you were talking about the political process? Do you remember around when that was? What year was that?
The first time on any of the I guess modern platforms, because I've been talking about politics since 2007 on Facebook. But when I started making videos, it was 2020. It was during the pandemic because one of my specialties is public health law. So that's when I started making content.
And I want you to know that I know this is true because one of my big sisters and friends, Geraldine Mariba, was like, "Have you heard of her? I love her." So it was around that time. It may have been 2021, but definitely around this time. Can you tell us, for the record, Elizabeth, when you first learned of chorus?
Well, I learned about it in November of 2024, right after the election.
Can you say that one more time for the people who might be slower, can't hear?
November 2024, after the election.
Okay. So I want to, so you said after the election, which means you didn't have any engagement with them for a very significant election, one where fascism was on the line. You were still doing content on your own.
Yeah, they did not exist. They approached a group of creators and asked us if we were interested in trying to form some way that we could get funding and not have any ties to having to create content. That's why this whole controversy is hilarious to me, because most of what I do is like, oh, here's a contract with a nonprofit and we want you to make a video or make some sort of content in exchange. And so what they were trying to do with Chorus is say, we want to find a way to fund you and also give you tools to be able to grow your platform, but not tell you what to do. And so this whole controversy has been really weird to me, because that's what attracted me to the group in the first place was, oh, okay, you're not even going to expect content from me.
So one of her arguments in the piece, in Taylor's piece, was that they actually were having editorial control over what you put out. So one of the things that we see all the time on Instagram is like, if you were paid by an advertiser, you need to disclose this thing because that means your content, what you're saying, has been influenced by the person or entity that paid you. You're saying the exact opposite, that this entity, Chorus, actually did not want to have influence over the subject matter of your content.
Correct. They did not want to have any influence over that. Also, I'm just going to keep it a book. $8,000 is not enough money for somebody to get content out of me all month. It's just not.
So can you, what was the reason when you were approached to take this deal? It's the core. I have your contract right here. This
She
is
has my contract.
have the contract. And I am an attorney. I'm not Elizabeth's attorney, but I am an attorney. One of the things that it's the amplifier services agreement, which I also think is very important for people to understand. In my mind, Elizabeth, and you can talk to me like I'm, you're a scientist, so maybe I missed it. Amplifier generally means they are going to uplift, promote, or shed light on something that already exists. Was that your understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole idea of the amplifier cohort was, this is a group of people who, it was kind of like a double entendre. So the first is, this is a group of people who, if we give them the support and services, they will be able to amplify their messages more easily, right? We're going to put you in a cohort that allows you to get the tools to basically maximize your way to amplify what you're doing. And then the other meaning to it is also, I mean, let's be straight up. They probably wanted people like me so that they can continue to get interest and funding for the cohort. And they could be like, look at Elizabeth Booker Houston. She was part of our cohort. Now we can get more funding and more people applying.
Well, and then so this is the other thing that I think is really significant to me. This isn't a day and age whether we should be talking about dark money funding this or funding that, but I think there is a difference in what dark money represents. I would love for you to explain to our audience what dark money is because it sounds so bad. We know as a communication strategy, people talk about a boogeyman, and dark money always is a great boogeyman because it sounds so awful. So from your understanding, Elizabeth, what is dark money?
So, dark money is where you cannot trace the donations back to the donors. And that is essentially any 501c4 organization. So, that includes organizations like Chorus, but that's not the only 501c4 I've worked with. I've also worked with the League for Conservation Voters. I've also worked with like Planned Parenthood Action Fund, different organizations, ACLU, they have 501c4 arms because they cannot trace the funding back to the donor. And they do some sort of work where they're essentially trying to influence politics, but they're not doing things like, you can't have a political ad for a candidate. It's not something that you can do that's partisan. It has to be nonpartisan. But you find that these groups often are trying to influence politics in other ways, more so focusing on the issues, not on a party and not on a candidate, which in my opinion is the best way to move. But dark money has also been specifically used over the years to talk about those 501c4s that are collecting this money so they can funnel it to super PACs. And I can say unequivocally, that is not what is happening in this situation. So when I saw the term dark money, I was thinking, okay, this is being used in the absolute broadest way, and it has a negative connotation that is likely just going to come off as salacious and get people to click on this.
And click they did. So to that point, I want to go to the dark money group that they reference in this piece, which is the 1630 Fund. The 1630 Fund is noted to be one of the left's largest hubs of dark money, according to a Politico article. It says that they have given money to 2 PACs, leading a successful campaign to preserve abortion rights. It says that they donated to the Congressional Integrity Project, which was a group that went to target Republican lawmakers who were involved in the impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden. They gave money to a climate conservation group, the Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions, a whopping $200,000. And then the Family Friendly Action Fund, which was a nonprofit whose affiliate pledged to spend $40 million reelecting Biden and other Democrats. And even with all of that, it says that some of their funds went down in 2024. But I'm bringing that up because dark money that helped to influence Russia's interference in a election versus dark money that is working to preserve some of our rights. Perhaps we're biased, Elizabeth. I think we are. Is different.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very different. And like I said, we know that this term has a negative connotation. And without the context and without giving the specifics or talking about how, especially given what's happened, I'm really disappointed that people didn't go and see who 1630 Fund is donated to as far as candidates, like Jamal Bowman, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, people who you and I, we greatly respect and admire and we consider friends or colleagues, who have been fighting the good fight. And so that has allowed a narrative to be pushed to not only portray this entire organization as something very negative, which then falls onto Chorus, which is 1630 Fund is the fiscal sponsor, not the funder for Chorus, which keeps getting overlooked as well. And then that trickles down to the creators who are part of Chorus to make us seem like we're doing something scandalous or trying to hide something from our followers. But really, to be quite honest, I just really thought that saying I'm part of Chorus was going to be good enough. I've never had anybody dig this far into any other 501c4 that I've worked with.
Well, can you talk about some of the benefits of the program? I think it's important for people to understand now that Chorus is the official boogie band of this week. And last, can you talk about some of the things that you gained from being a part of this program?
Yeah, the thing that they've been teaching us is really just technical tools. So I personally want to get onto YouTube as a platform and grow more on there. Everybody has different goals coming into the cohort. There are some people who are trying to grow in different ways. I know a lot of us have also been like growing our Facebooks because of the technical tools and the trainings they're giving us. And so they have these trainings where they're showing us this is how you can make the best graphics. This is how you can make the best thumbnails. This is how you can edit your software with these different tools. This is how you can make sure that your sound is perfect with this microphone. It's all very, very technical. There is absolutely nothing that is said that says, hey, you're going to make a video about this specific topic. You're going to talk about this issue this way. It's more so whatever the hell you talk about, here's how you can do it and make it sound really good. And then there's also daily messaging updates, which again are just talking about these are the major messages breaking through in the news. Just like if you were just going to pull up, Google and try to see what the top news stories were for the day, those meetings last like 10 minutes. They're not this big in-depth talking point situation. It's just, here's some ideas, guys, if you're trying to think of ways to make content. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you too. The thing that gets me about that is the way people read that as, oh, well, they're directing your content. I don't really pay attention to most of the messaging meetings myself because I already know what I want to talk about most of the time. And also my focus is very much on the Black community. So there are many days where they're like, here's the top messages. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Maybe that'll help somebody else, but I already know I want to talk about this. And
have you ever seen anything where they're like, you get this particular reward or, a certain kind of feature if you talk about the content that they recommend?
No, because there's nothing like that.
No.
Because again, they're not even recommending like content. They're just saying, this is what we're seeing people talk about in the news. Take it,
Right.
leave it, do what you want to do with it.
What about this idea that you guys have to vet any content you do outside of the program through them? If you want to speak to an elected official or a candidate, you have to run that by them. What about that claim?
Yeah, that is completely 100% false. And that came from a section of the contract, which I know you read, which talks about the chorus newsroom requirement. And it says that we have to participate in the newsroom at least twice a month. Um, just to be blunt, we haven't done any newsrooms because I believe there just wasn't the funding there yet. This isn't like a super huge, widely funded thing. This is very much a startup. So we haven't even done any newsroom events, but the idea was we want you to do 2 newsroom events a month, and you can book with lawmakers through Chorus, but if you want to reach out to them yourselves, just coordinate with us so we know that you're using the newsroom. That's what that meant, is that if you're going to work in the newsroom with these lawmakers for your 2 newsroom whatever events a month, let us know because we've got to coordinate. When it comes to anything not related to Chorus newsroom, if I'm not doing anything with Chorus, everything else, they don't even know. And because we haven't even done any newsroom events, I haven't talked to them about any lawmakers I'm talking to, except maybe after the fact. Sometimes in the group chats, I'm like, look at this cool interview I did. Check it out. Feel free to share it, that sort of thing. And I can also say that my other sponsors that, again, are disclosed all over my page would be pissed off if I gave all of that control over to Chorus, that every single lawmaker booking I have has to go through them. It doesn't even make logical sense. And again, that's why I was so thrown by all of this. I was like, that doesn't even make sense.
I think that one of the things you just brought up is sponsors. And so there may be somebody that is listening that is like, well, if you're doing this because it's the right thing, why do you have sponsors? Talk about why that is and how you got to the point where you would have sponsors or partners on content.
I have bills.
Right, but how did, because you didn't start off as a sponsored talent, right? It's something that you have moved towards as you have influenced and become more influential. People see you popping up a lot more. They're like, oh, we need to hire her to do XYZ. Talk about some of those partnerships or sponsorships.
Yeah, my main one is Congressional Black Caucus PAC. I love working with CBC PAC. I've worked with them for like a year and a half now,
Oh,
actually.
let me disclose I am on the board because before that becomes a problem for Miss Taylor or anybody else that's trolling. I'm on the board. We're
She's on the
proud to
board.
have Elizabeth.
Thank you. I love working with CBC PAC. I try to work with, I really have a preference for Black organizations, Black-led organizations, which again is why that's so funny that people think I would give away all my control and autonomy to some white boys who founded something. But aside from that, I work with the Washington Informer. I've been really excited to have a 3-month partnership with them. They are a Black DC newspaper. They just extended my partnership another 3 months. So excited to work with them on that. I've worked with Watering Hole Media with our good sis Ashley Allison. She has been fantastic, and that brings together Black, Indigenous, and creators of color. We just finished another cohort I was in that was disclosed on my page, where we talked about health and Medicaid and talked about that specifically. I've also I have so many different partnerships I've done, like I said, with ACLU. I've done several kind of one-off projects with them, Planned Parenthood Action Fund, Evergreen Action Fund, pretty much just all things that align with my content. And so the way that I approach all of these contracts, because I get a lot of offers for a lot of things, I do not accept most of them. I find those contracts and sponsorships that already align with what I'm doing and what I want to say. It's not the other way around. I've actually even had contracts where I've started working on something, they come back and they change the messaging, and I cancel the contract and say, I'm sorry, this doesn't align anymore. I have no problem doing that. And I really love doing this work, like being able to do it full time, which I've only been a full time content creator for the last few weeks. As you know, I left my
government
federal
job.
No, I left it. And the irony about leaving my federal job at the FDA was I joked on Threads and said, y'all didn't care this much when my salary was paid by user fees from Big Pharma.
Talk about that too. They may not know that, Elizabeth. They only can, people can't walk and chew gum. They got to walk or chew gum. So we talked about this piece around the candidates too. We talked about your other sponsors or partners. One of the things that I thought was fascinating about Taylor's interview with The Hill was that she said that the right comes across as more authentic, and there's not this effort to gatekeep and from the top. And I thought that was really fascinating, because that couldn't be further from the truth. There are so many documented incidents of them putting people literally from ground zero, putting people on, and they have a lot more money to do that. I think one of the platforms we saw pop up, I think in 2020, was Rumble, and they were paying people to go onto the platform millions of dollars. Again, for the record, do you want to share how much your contract was with Chorus?
Yeah, it's $8,000 a month for a 6-month cohort.
So $8,000 a month for 6 months, and you're like, that's not enough for you to have paid for me and sold me off. That's not sufficient.
I
Are there?
made $12,000 a month when I was a Fed lawyer. I mean,
Yeah,
just to be frank,
yeah.
my finances have been public for so long as a federal employee, having to file OG 450s, things like that. So, I'd been very public. But no, to say that $4,000 less than my indefinite salary as a Fed lawyer for a mere 6-month cohort is enough to sell myself over, give up the full creative control, and have people tell me what to say. Absolutely not. I will throw ass on a stage before I do that. I'm sorry, but not sorry. That's crazy to me.
Well, on speaking of throwing ass, I think that the other thing that we should get to is, like, where do you go from here with this story? This she's thrown all of this out here. A lot of allegations. It sounds like some of them debunked, even from your own contract. There's nothing that proves or establishes some of the claims that she's made in the piece. Instead of retracting them in the piece, she has gone online to be defensive or to suggest that maybe this isn't in fact the case. What is your comment to Taylor at this point, and to other folks who are out there, some of them who look like us, who are writing the basis claims in this article as truth?
I think it's really disappointing that this could have been a really good opportunity to just talk about dark money and 1630 fund as a whole, rather than honing in on one set of creators and one nonprofit. Because let's be for real, it was definitely coming in at the creators. And I think this stems from the fact that she published an article on April 24th where she first said the chorus was scamming people and not paying creators, right? Now the story has changed. Now they're paying. I don't know if it was to save face. I don't know what the situation was, but that article still hasn't even been retracted. And now there are the claims that, of course, they are paying creators and not scamming creators. And so I don't really know what the motive was with that. I also think it was ridiculous to say things like we were not allowed to talk about Gaza or the genocide in Palestine. And my attorney counted up, just for purposes of what I'll get into my next step, was that I had made 19 posts on Instagram alone and since June 1st in my stories and my grid and collaborations, all about the genocide in Gaza, covering the flotilla, what happened to Chris Smalls with him being beaten by the IDF, a doctor who couldn't get to the children in Gaza, fundraising. I have had fundraising links for Palestinian families, as well as folks who are affected by the genocides in Congo, Sudan, Tigray, in my bio for a very long time. I regularly share these things in my stories, and on threads and reposts. And so that was just such an easily debunked claim that all it took was one person to say, well, I think this is happening. And I was flooded with comments of people saying, why won't you acknowledge the genocide in Gaza, when I have consistently? So that was disappointing. And also to say that we were pushing the party line and trying to make it seem like this was a DNC project or the Democrats. The DNC has been incredibly anti-Black, and I have many problems with them, which I have been very public about. So that pissed me off on a different level, because, to be quite frank, and the DNC knows this because I've been on some calls where I popped off, I don't want to be in any creator cohort they ever have. I really don't. I don't like any idea of being told that I got to push any particular Democrat. If I go talk to them, it's because I wanted to talk to them. It's because I wanted to interview this person. I don't like the idea of that. At the DNC last year, they had all of these creators, some of them 3-4 to a hotel room because they couldn't afford a hotel in Chicago, wouldn't even cover like Ubers, no flights, wouldn't give people food. You had to buy concessions inside of the stadium, and they had maybe a few little snacks out that everybody had to fight over. I mean, this was not no 5-star treatment by any means. So it really irritates me that people keep saying that I'm paid by the DNC when they've never paid me not one red cent. And my money has been very Black. As I've said, the organizations that have paid me the best and the most have been Black organizations. And so I really feel like that undermines so much of my work, the hard work that I put in to build my platform, and also is really dismissive of the Black partners that I work with and highlight the most. And it just very much was giving, there's no way that this Black woman could possibly be worth $8,000 a month for 6 months unless she's giving everything over to these individuals to tell her what to do. There's no way she could possibly retain her autonomy and still be worthy of that when we know that white creators are making 5 times that much money. Way more money. The disparity is insane. So there's so many layers to it. And I could just go on and on, but I will say that my next steps are that as of about an hour ago, my attorney has sent a letter to Wired and Condé Nast demanding a retraction, as well as detailing in roughly, I think, 15 exhibits, evidence of why this was defamatory, why it was false, why it was knowingly and intentionally false. Because Miss Lorenz knows we have text messages that we've had conversation in the past that she knew I was part of Chorus. She knows that we have DMs, we've had conversations. Again, I noticed that she has my cell phone number, but I never got a text message asking to even speak on this article. It turned out she sent it to a DM on Instagram, which she shared the screenshot on social media. And this was after I unfollowed her due to issues from the past. And of course, those DMs get buried when you have 500,000 followers. But again, this has all been a very interesting experience.
And you're saying, sorry, Elizabeth, you're saying for the record, she has your phone number.
Yes.
But she says in the piece that she reached out to you for comment, but you didn't. But where she sought comment was not at your phone number. It was in your Instagram DMs where you don't follow her.
Yes. So just little things that just keep adding up. And I'm just really disappointed with the way I've seen people talk about this. Like I had one person online say, I never took dark money. I took money from organizations like Move On. And I said, well, Move On took $250,000 from 1630 last year.
Dark money.
So that's dark money. There's a lot
according to the definition, which is why we take issue with the definition. There are several of our civil rights orgs that are 501c4s. So if you take any money from a C4, if that automatically means that because they have donors that don't have to be disclosed as dark money, are we really wanting to use this definition in that way, or use that term in this way?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I made that comment about the NAACP when I was having a conversation with Conscious Lee on Threads, and I put dark money in quotes, which then brought Taylor to then come in on Twitter, for some reason not on Threads, where the conversation began, and screenshot and say that I was dogging out the NAACP. And I just, I was like, okay, now this is just being willfully obtuse at this point, that you're not understanding what we are trying to say and how reckless this was. I have had an influx of so many harassing comments of people saying horrible things. However, I have had way more support from the people who I actually care about, which is my community. I wish that people understood more that my politic is Black woman. It's not leftist, it's not progressive, it's not liberal, it's not conservative, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's Black woman. So I go into everything with the idea of what is the best thing for my community. And Angela and you and I have talked about how people don't understand that way far end of the spectrum, the left spectrum, that is not the majority of our community by any means. And and I understand that there are some Black folks who are on that far left end who are making sure to try to move that needle. And I appreciate that work that they do. And many of those same individuals have come out of my defense over this past week. Even if we don't agree on the methods to get to liberation, they know that this was not right. And I appreciate them so much, because at the end of the day, we always have community no matter where we sit. But I have decided that this is where I'm going to sit, is that more pragmatic approach that I have learned from the majority of folks in my community. And that's what I'm relying on, because to be quite honest, I think that's where my talents lie. I know administrative law. I know how these systems work. And so that's my space. And I just wish that more people understood that we can all have this role to play. And it doesn't mean that just because somebody is working on a different part of the path to liberation, it doesn't mean that they're evil. It doesn't mean that the work that I do is undermined just because I'm saying I'm going to work a little bit within this system, right, to try to make change. And that goes the same for the folks who are on the far left who are saying, I'm never going to work within that system. I'm never going to work within it, but I'm going to do all of the community organizing outside. I'm going to be protesting outside in these streets. Everybody's got their part to play in this. And I think that's where a lot of the conversation has gotten murky. And just to be blunt, I need white people on the left to stay the hell out of our business. Because that has been the worst part about this conversation is the number of especially white men who want to come into a space that they don't need to be in and trying to talk to us. This is why we got to keep our outside conversations inside, to be honest.
Well, that makes sense too. I would say, just to close, Elizabeth, I know you got you are on sun duty, but I want to ask you if you have any parting words to folks who may be haters, naysayers, they confuse, they're disparaging, whatever's happening right now. What is your message to them if they continue to rely on an article that you expect at least your attorneys are pushing for to be fully retracted, especially as it relates to putting some respect on your name?
I'm paid. I'm not bought, but you can try me if you want to.
Well, and on that note, on that high Sherlyn Chisholm note, this has been a Black Women Political Party podcast. Elizabeth Booker Houston, I'm so grateful for you, sis. Make sure y'all follow her at BookerSquared because she might be paid. She might have a partner. She might even have a sponsor for here and now. But they don't tell her what to say, and neither did I. Welcome home, y'all.